All right. What is up, Big 12 fans? This is Joseph back with the Big 12 Football Digest, and we have quite a show for you guys today. We are going to be diving into Utah being predicted to win the Big 12. That'll be our first segment. After a disappointing 5-7 year, could Utah be the favorites to win the Big 12? Some sources think so. Segment two, we'll talk Big 12 wildness. We're going to review last year's preseason rankings for the football teams in the Big 12 compared to the actual win totals to give you just how wild of a season it was and how many bottom dwellers were able to rise to the top and how many, projected big time teams fell to the bottom. It was a wild year. Then we'll talk some conference realignment in the Pac 12 and the Mountain West. We'll also move on after that to talk the ACC TV option. Obviously, that's big news right now. Then finally, we'll do Big 12 draft risers and fallers, the Senior Bowl and the East West Shrine Bowl, and many other, all-star type of bowls going on. There is a lot going on with potential Big 12 draft prospects. And then finally, we're going to review some of the recruits that have signed and the transfers that have gone to different teams. We'll talk London Smith, Jack Utz, Corbin Glasgow, Landon Anderson, Amontre Harris, Patrick Gerd, Camp Lot. It should be a great episode, guys, and we should have a ton of fun. The show is a part of the 1012 Network. 1012 Network is sponsored by Charlie Hustle. Charlie Hustle, vintage made fresh. Go to charliehustle.com, use code 1012network at checkout for 15% off any non-sale items. Great stuff, guys. You can see the gear here, really high quality stuff. Again, charliehustle.com, Charlie Hustle, vintage made fresh. Use code 1012network. That's TEN12network for 15% off any non-sale items. They have great clothes and great products for all the teams in the Big 12. Check them out. And let's go ahead and dive in and get the episode started. All right, guys, this first segment is going to be us talking about the Utah Utes and could Utah win the Big 12 in 2025? It sounds a little wild considering Utah just went 5-7, but when you consider all the details, guys, it shouldn't come as a complete shocker. As much as Utah did only win 5 games last year, they were really in almost every single game they played. And we're going to break it down in a little more detail here. I'm going to pull up an article here by Jason Jones of Utah Utes on SI, and it's going to break down a lot of detail. ESPN came out with Utah as the favorite to win the Big 12 and be the number 3 seed in the college football playoff. I know to a lot of us that seems wild, even as a Utah fan, that almost feels a little bold considering how these past 2 years have went. But I think with a little more detail, you guys will see where it's coming from. Let's go ahead and pull up that article now. Okay, guys, like I said, this is an article by Jason Jones. Kyle Whittingham and Utah projected to win Big 12 with CFP playoff bid in 2025. I'm going to move down a little bit to here. Standout in the projections is the University of Utah, ranked as the number 3 seed. ESPN not only predicts the Utes will claim the Big 12 title, but also foresees significant success in the postseason. According to the projection, Utah will defeat number 6 Texas in the Cotton Bowl, advancing to a semifinal matchup in the Fiesta Bowl against number 2 Penn State. Unfortunately, ESPN predicts a narrow loss to the Nittany Lions, ending Utah's playoff run. And I mean, that would be an awesome year as a Utah fan. That would be a huge year. And we did play Penn State in the Rose Bowl a couple years ago. And in that game, it was Cam Rising got injured, but even before he got injured, it was like a slugfest. Penn State is no joke. There's a reason they were in the Final Four. And Notre Dame was a very good team that made it to the finals, and it was a razor thin margin of victory for Notre Dame against Penn State. So Penn State's, a no joke team. And I expect with the new CFP model, they'll just continue to get better. Despite a rocky debut season in the Big 12 due to numerous injuries, Utah's resilience and potential for growth make them a favorite for the upcoming season. In 2024, the Utes struggled offensively, but still managed to remain competitive, losing 5 one-score games and maintaining a top defense. With most of the defensive lineup returning, marginal improvements on offense could propel Utah to new heights. Here's what ESPN's Bill Connolly wrote. So I'll touch on that before we talk about what Bill Connolly said. But it's so true, guys. Utah, just pulling up Utah's record for 2024. Sorry. Football schedule. Sorry. I'm going to pull it up right here. So looking at Utah's football schedule in 2024, there was so many just razor thin games, guys. You look at our losses here. Arizona was a 13-point loss. That was a bit of a bad loss, but Arizona State an 8-point loss. So kind of a tough one-score loss. But you think about it, guys, Arizona State, they won the Big 12 and nearly took down Texas. And Texas was very high powered. Let me put this on the screen for you guys. You look at this. I mean, Arizona State nearly took down Texas. We only lost by 6 points to TCU. Our defense was lights out. Our offense just could not do anything. Again, Houston, only 3 points. BYU, the refs gave them that 1 point. Colorado, 24-49. That was probably the only game where we really got the really beat up, right? That's just really what happened. They did pull away late in the game, but it was a good win for Colorado beginning to end. I don't feel bad saying that. That's just the truth of the matter. And then you see here, Iowa State, 28-31, razor thin again, and that's a top 25 team. You look at this, like 3 teams in a row, 2 out of the 3 teams were top 25 teams that we lost to by 3 points or less. At UCF, we win the game. So you guys can break down that schedule. So we score 4 more points here, we win the game. We score 2 more points here, we win the game. We score 4 more points here, we win the game. We score 7 more points here, we win the game. And I won't go down the entire list, but you can imagine how that season becomes very different. One thing a lot of sites will do is they do a luck projection or a luck rating. And basically it says like how lucky you were as a team. I'll go ahead and pull that up real quick just so you guys can get an idea of what I'm talking about here. Yeah, so I'm going to put this on the screen. So this is the luck rating of every team, right? So take a look here. And basically what it does, it accounts for a lot of things like if you know, it was a tight game at the end of the game and blank number shows that the other team would win X% of the time. I hope that's making sense. So it's like, hey, if a team rushes for 200 yards, they usually win blank percent of the time, like a high percentage of the time. Or if blank team turns the ball over less than blank percent of the time, they win the game. That's kind of what this is, like how much luck played into it. And you can see here, and I'm not trashing BYU, but I've mentioned it before, BYU had a lucky year. And that's not saying they weren't skilled, they weren't a talented team, but they won a lot of really tight games and really, you know, wild things happened for them to win a lot of these games. Arizona State, another team that had a ton of luck. Let's keep going down the list here. I mean, there's a bunch of teams up here that had a lot of luck. Notre Dame, above average lucky. And you go all the way down this list, guys. Look at who is number 131. And I think this is a good reference point that UCF would be number 134. You know, it's because UCF they're a great example. So is Utah, where it's like they had really good stats and they could not win games. And I think that just goes to show you just how important the quarterback position is in the modern era, right? It will make or break your year. Moving back over to this article, Arizona State will have a solid chance to back up its 2024 breakthrough in 2025. Returning quarterback Sam Leavitt, wideout Jordan Tyson, and a number of exciting pieces on defense that were responsible for ASU's late season surge as the offense. But the Sun Devils have to replace their heart and soul identity. I was going to mention Cam Scatteraboo. Not that I don't think Arizona State will be a contender. I think Sam Leavitt looked awesome this year, improved it, especially against Utah. He made plays. He made plays when nothing was there. He was very impressive in my eyes. But Cam Scatteraboo was special. He's going to be a day 1, day 2 pick. If he's not, that's crazy. I don't think every team will have him graded there, but someone's going to take him. You go watch that film, guys. Crazy stuff he did. Like guys having him, multiple guys dead to rights in the backfield with Cam Scatteraboo, and him just cutting and changing direction at ridiculous levels. So really, really important. And then you see here in the most parity-friendly major conference in college football, you rarely get the breaks you need in consecutive seasons. So ASU, Iowa State, and Texas Tech are out in their role. So it's basically saying like, hey, when you're talking about a bunch of one-score games, so Arizona State was 6-2 in one-score games, Iowa State 5-1, Texas Tech 6-1, Kansas and Utah were both 1-5 in one-score games, and that's again talking about that luck factor, right, guys? Where, hey, if you want to consistently win year in and year out, especially in a conference as competitive as the Big 12, you don't want to just be riding on that one score game luck. And it is consistently one of the numbers that projects next season's success is how many one score games you're winning. Usually if you're a 10-2 or 10-3 or 11-2 team that did that with a lot of one score wins, there's a really good chance you're going to rebound and have a lot of one score losses, because a lot of that is there is luck involved. And that's why I pulled up those luck numbers, guys. That's the Utah situation. Utah Utah could be the favorite to win the Big 12. There's betting odds that show that Utah's tied for first place, and ESPN has them projected to be the number 3 team in the CFP heading into 2025. All right, guys. Next up, this next segment is going to be talking about the Big 12's wild year. Utah is new to the Big 12, so this was an experience for us as Utah fans, but also just Big 12 fans in general. One wild thing, and we all knew this heading into the Big 12, is that the possibility that the preseason predictions could be extremely wrong based on how deep this league is very real. And it really showed this year, guys. This year we had some crazy disparity in predicted wins to actual wins. So we're going to look at the Big 12 football media preseason poll, and we're going to match that up against the final Big 12 records to get an idea of just how wild of a year this was and just how little anyone could have expected this. Let's go ahead and dive in. All right, guys, and we're going to start by taking a look at the Big 12 preseason media poll rankings. So take a look here. You can see pretty much these 5 teams, Arizona, Kansas, Oklahoma State, Kansas State, and Utah, had a pretty big gap on the rest of the pack, right? Iowa State not too far off, but these were kind of the 5, right, that had a pretty big gap. And Utah and Kansas State specifically, Oklahoma State was kind of right in the middle between the other 2 teams. But Utah and Kansas State were looked at to be huge favorites to win the conference. But let's take a look. So what I want to do, guys, is go from first to worst and where everyone had each team finishing and where they actually finished. So let's go ahead and take a look here. So Utah, the number 1 projected team in the football media preseason poll, finished 5-7 on the year, 2-7 in conference play. Again, we talked about it, guys. A lot of rough breaks for Utah, but wild there for the number 1 projected team to wind up one of the worst teams in the league last year. Again, I think talent-wise, we weren't one of the worst teams in the league, but record-wise, we did finish that way. And then Kansas State was projected to be number 2 in the league. So, they're expecting Kansas State for being in the conference championship. But Kansas State actually wound up finishing, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 8th in the conference. So from number 2 to number 8, they went 9-4 on the year and 5-4 in conference play. So struggled a decent amount in conference play, even though their overall record on the year does reflect a little better than that. Oklahoma State, this is going to be one of the most drastic ones. They were projected number 3, and if you look, they were kind of right outside of those top 2 in this voting. And you look here, guys, Oklahoma State finished last in the conference, going 3-9, but more importantly, 0 wins for Oklahoma State in conference play. That is wild. So just crazy stuff there. Looking at Kansas, that is going to be another one that really stands out. Kansas was projected to finish 5th or 4th in the conference, and you can see here that they looked like a really good team this year, right? With Jalen Daniels, it looked like it was going to be awesome, but they really struggled. Again, they went 5-7, just like Utah, and they actually went 4-5 in conference play, so a little better in conference than Utah, but overall in the season, just struggle. Arizona, another team that fell from grace, they were projected to finish fifth. And they wound up finishing 4-8 on the year and 2-7 in conference play. So even worse than Utah. And, a lot of people, myself included, had Noah Fafita as one of the best quarterbacks in the conference. At least with Utah, you have the Cam Rising excuse, which, that excuse is out the window. No more Cam Rising talk in upcoming years. But that's why we were projected to be so high, and he played one game and he was injured. But Arizona, they had their guy. They had their quarterback, and they weren't able to get it done. And then what I'm going to do is, obviously there's a bunch of teams in here we could talk about, but what I want to do, guys, is go down to these bottom teams and tell you where they finished, because I think that makes things a little more interesting. So looking at teams, you know what, we could poke it a little. I'm gonna go through each team, but I'm gonna do a little bit of rapid fire here. Iowa State projected to finish sixth, and they finished second in the Big 12, 7-2 in conference play, 11-3 on the year. West Virginia is right about where they were supposed to be. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So they finished ninth, but they were projected to be seventh. So about where they were projected to be. So good call there. TCU overperformed a decent amount. TCU finished sixth, 8-5 overall, 6-3 in conference play. So pretty decent there for TCU. Colorado well overperformed. They were projected to finish 11th. They went 9-4, 7-2 in conference play. Baylor 8-5 overall, 6-3 in conference play. They were projected, and that puts them at fifth in the conference, where they were projected to be 13th. Cincinnati did about where they were expected, or actually a little better than expected. 5-7, 3-6 in conference play. Then Houston, I skipped BYU. All right, that's a fun one too. BYU is a great example. So BYU finished third, and they were expected to be 13th, so 10 spots above where they were expected to be. 11-2 overall record, 7-2 in conference play, due to a devastating defense that caused a ton of turnovers. Then going on to Houston, they did a little better than expected, but still towards the bottom. 4-8 overall, 3-6 in conference play. And this is obviously the one that stands out the most, guys. Arizona State, they were projected to finish last in the conference. They were the number one team in the Big 12, 11-3 record, 7-2 in the Big 12. Went to the CFP and almost pulled it off. They were a 4th and 13 away from pulling it off against Texas. Heartbreaker loss for all Big 12 fans. I think we all wanted them to win that game. So tough loss there, but that is the Big 12, guys. What a wild season it was. I'm sure we will be in for another shocker this year. A fun pop question, if you made it this far in the video, guys, is who is this year's Arizona State? Who is this year's team that everyone's kind of counting out? Everyone's thinking they don't have a big shot, but is going to really surprise people and really make a statement. I'm excited to hear your thoughts, guys. But that was the Big 12 preseason versus actual rankings for the year 2024. Okay, guys, and this next segment is going to be talking about conference realignment. We've got Northern Illinois headed to the Mountain West. We've got a bunch of the Pac-12 teams, or a bunch of the Mountain West teams, heading to the Pac-12. And conference realignment just continues to get crazier and crazier. We'll dive in. We'll talk about it. We'll talk about what the future could look like. We've got a nice article here to check out. I'm going to pull that up now. Okay, guys, and this article is by Colton Poole of Hero Sports. You can see here, Northern Illinois Mountain West move official. Northern Illinois leaders voted to accept an invitation from the Mountain West, and the move was made official earlier this month. That means NIU will leave the MAC, and they are heading to the Mountain West. The Mountain West is, a clear powerhouse when it comes to the G5, but when you look a little deeper, and the powerhouse, at least some of the powerhouse schools in the the Mountain West, are moving to the Big 12. So Boise State, Fresno State, Colorado State, Utah State, and San Diego State join the Pac-12. they have announced they are officially going to the Pac-12 beginning during the 2026 season. Gonzaga will also be going to the Pac-12 as a non-football member. These moves created a ripple effect for the rest of the FBS. The Pac-12 needs at least one more team to be technically considered a conference, so others will likely become members of the new look league. The Mountain West lost some of its top teams and began searching for candidates to boost its numbers back up. Pac-12 officials reportedly believe the league can reach a media deal worth more than the Mountain West currently, which is a key reason for the moves. The Pac-12 is no longer an autonomous league, meaning it had more influence in regards to NCAA decisions and received more money from the college football playoff. It's uncertain if the Pac-12 could regain that status. It's also unclear if the CFP would go back to 6 automatic qualifying spots for conference championship winners, as that number decreased to 5 following the Pac-12 dropping to 2 teams. So just to discuss that a little bit, guys. So the Pac-12 was one of the, good P5 schools. It used to be the P5 and the G5, Power 4 and the Group of 5, which was the haves and the have-nots, basically. And now we're in a different world, right? We are in a world where it is the E2, the Elite 2, the Big Ten, and the SEC. At least at the moment, guys, this is where we are. You can dispute it if you want, but go look at the college football playoff and look how that turned out. And then we have what I would call the B2. So they're not quite at the level of the Big Ten and the SEC, but you've got the Big 12 and ACC as the next 2 up. I think based on the projected future, I think there's a chance one of those 2 could hop in front of the other. But either way, I think you've got to, those are the next tier. And what I think is really interesting is I think it leaves open a gap where it's like, okay, it's just the G5 after that, right? It's the P4 and it's the G5. But the Pac-12, right? The Pac-12, we could be talking Oregon State, Washington State, a bunch of those other teams we just mentioned. I mean, to me at this point, you add a few more talented teams, and the Pac-12 is a real contender here. You could see Memphis, USF, UTSA, and Tulane to stay in the ACC. The Pac-12 is reportedly hoping to add them. Publicly announced a recommitment to the AAC. But you guys know how this conference realignment stuff goes. People work in the shadows. You don't know until it happens. Like if the Pac-12 taught us anything, is that when it happens fast and dirty, right? It is just when it happens, it happens. Pac-12 Mountain West lawsuit. The Pac-12 is filing a lawsuit against the Mountain West over its poaching penalties. That number will be more than 50 million, depending on how many schools end up going from the Mountain West to the Pac-12. Those fees are on top of the 17 million per school that the soon-to-be Pac-12 members will have to pay for leaving the Mountain West, though the Pac-12 will cover some or all of that. The poaching penalties, blah, blah, blah. So which teams left the Pac-12? We know that, right? That was the Four Corners schools, the Pacific Northwest. I mean, every school except Oregon State and Washington State left the Pac-12. Who is the Pac-2? So it's Oregon State and Washington State. And then it seems like they're adding Boise State and the rest of those teams, Colorado State, all those guys. I think it's an interesting situation, guys, just to touch on it a little bit. We have a gap in the market, right? There's a need in the market for a next tier, right? Like a G5 conference that's good, right? It's like, hey, yes, I'll schedule G5 because I feel decent my teams can win. But it's like, hey, a G5 conference is good that'll look respectable if you get a win against them. That's important. That's important to P4 teams right now, is making sure you can schedule teams that aren't going to look like a joke on your schedule, but at the same time you feel reasonably confident you're going to win those games. The other thing is, if you're this new Pac-6 or whatever it is we got there's a lot of room in the college football playoff, right? Go ahead and lock yourself in as one of the people getting whoever wins the conference championship gets a locked in spot. And I think it's a really cool opportunity for the Pac-12 to do something like that. Guys, I'd love to hear your thoughts below. A lot of conference realignment, a lot of expansion. I know we're all kind of exhausted of it, but I just wanted to touch on this. It was something that came to my mind. So that's the Pac-12 growing, expanding, Mountain West getting, NIU, but seemingly smaller, weaker, and less valuable. All right, guys, this next segment is going to be us talking about this new ACC TV option. It is clearly one of the more controversial topics in college football, in college sports, in the news right now. I mean, it is a wild time right now. The AC is locked into this gigantic deal where the projected money in the future doesn't quite seem to add up with the value that a lot of the teams are bringing. Definitely a tough spot to be in. I think it's a great lesson in why you don't sign giant long-term contracts for 20 years. I mean, Jesus. I mean, I'm not going to judge because I've never been in the room negotiating a 20-year contract, but yeah, a lesson for the future for all college football conferences. Let's go ahead and dive in and check out some of the details in this article here. All right, guys. So let's take a look here. There's an article by Ross Dellinger of Yahoo Sports. Love Ross's articles. Good stuff. He is always on top of it. Very informative. You can see here, ACC executives are in the process of formally ratifying the extension of its television contract with ESPN for another 9 years. So, they had an option. ACC was able to pick it up. I believe this contract started in 2016. And it can go up until 2026. Again, the numbers at the time made sense for projection, but you think about how much college football has grown from 2016 till now. It hasn't grown at a normal rate. It's actually grown extremely well. College football, NIL brought it into the spotlight, and the conference's abilities and the teams in the conference's abilities to negotiate and use their media rights to their advantage is huge. And it's a different world now. So in 2016, who would guess there'd be no Pac-12 and there'd be all the conference realignment that we've seen over the past 5 years? I mean, just wild stuff. So a good lesson in why you don't sign a terribly long-term contract. So ACC presidents met Wednesday for a briefing and are expected to accept, if they have not already done so, the network's extension, though there is little to no other option. Within the ACC's deal with ESPN, the network, not the league, is afforded the option to extend the package by its own discretion. As part of a scheduling arrangement under discussion, the league's biggest brands, Florida State, Miami, and Clemson, are expected to play more football games regularly with Notre Dame. The Irish are expected to play at the very least 2 of the 3 each season in rotation. The extension paves the way for the league to potentially finalize a settlement with Clemson and Florida State that would keep them in conference under possible alterations to the conference grant of rights and the league's revenue distribution structure. As Yahoo Sports reported in September, the sides negotiating for months now are inching closer to a resolution. The ESPN television contract is at the heart of the matter. FSU and Clemson's lawsuits against their own league was originally thought to be an effort to leave or at the very least spark change to both the ACC revenue distribution and the length of the league's grant of rights, which coincides with ESPN's television contract. So just to give you guys a little bit of an idea, the number, it's about 45 million-ish is the average for the ACC. The problem is that that's actually more than what the teams in the Big 12 are making on average. The reason it's a problem when you look at it, guys, is you're being locked up until 2036. It's not like you're poor now, right? And the other thing is Clemson, Miami, Florida State, even North Carolina. These are giant brands. Like, these are major brands that if they were free to go negotiate elsewhere, they could probably blow that 45 million number out of the water. Just to give you an example, Big Ten revenue distribution. I'm just going to give you guys an example of what this could look like. So, where is it? Okay. So like right now the SEC is distributing 51 million to each school, and again, they'll re-up soon, right? And then we've got, I believe it's in 2031 is when the new renegotiation happens. And then Big 12 schools receive distributions ranging from 43.8 million to 48.2. So I misspoke a little there. So about 45. So basically more than the ACC, or right on par with them. So you can get an idea, guys, that's not going to make sense in 5 years, in 6 years, in 2031 when they do another contract negotiation. So the ACC really is in a bad spot. It kind of sucks for them. You definitely feel bad for them in a lot of ways. I think the number one thing that annoys me about all this is what this could do to major brands in college football, right? Like this could really over time start to hurt brands like Florida State, Miami, North Carolina, Clemson. Like, not that all those teams have been hitters year in and year out over recent history, but you think about it. I mean, I don't know about you guys. I love seeing things shake up a little, and I love new guys coming to the party and throwing knockout punches to big dogs. But I don't like college football teams' successes having too much of influence by people that aren't, non-college football related influence. What I mean is, like, they're not able to negotiate what they would probably receive in the market over the next 10 or so years because they're locked into this awful contract. So I would love to know your guys' thoughts on this whole situation. Just a bad spot for the ACC. This is, just locked in. Obviously, they're still making tons of money, but you want to make whatever the other teams are making, and that's doesn't look like it's projecting that way. So I'd love to hear your thoughts, guys. That's the ACC TV option. Okay, guys, and the Senior Bowl, the East West Shrine Bowl are all, going on basically right now. And I think a fun exercise is going to be to dive in. And what we'll do is we'll take a look at all the Big 12 draft prospects, just a quick overview, but then also look at some people that are rising or falling based on their performances in these all-star games. Should be a lot of fun, guys. As much, I think we all like the NFL draft. At least I do. And I enjoy to see how Big 12 and how my teams are doing as they project to the draft. So it should be a lot of fun, guys. Some people aren't rising super high or falling super hard. Some are. But then we'll also touch a little on like the guys that are kind of just showing that they deserve to be where they are, or maybe trending up a little or trending down just a little bit. So let's go ahead and dive in and take a look at the big board. Okay, guys, and here we are looking at the PFF NFL draft big board. Number one guy on the board is Travis Hunter. Very impressive player here, right? Travis Hunter, clearly a monster player, a guy that I think anyone that says they don't think he's a very good player is, just, I don't know what you're looking at. If you don't think he's very good, I didn't agree. I didn't think he should have won the Heisman, but I still think he's a very good player. And I think any team getting him is going to be getting a star. I think what's interesting to me is how do you use this guy? I think that'll be a fun storyline. Like whatever team does pick him up, it's like, what are you going to do with him? I think a good question mark is like a guy to relate him to is kind of like an Isaiah Simmons, if you guys remember him from Clemson a while ago. But he went to the Cardinals, I believe, and he was like this super freak athlete that played linebacker. And it was like, okay, what are you going to do with him? Yeah, he's a monster athlete. He's a freak. Where do you put him and how are you going to use him? Because if you don't use him in an effective way, it's not going to be worth where you have to pick him. And I think that's how I'd look at Travis Hunter, where he's probably a top 5 pick, but if you get a really good receiver or a really good outside corner with a top 5 pick, probably worth it. And then you have the upside of him potentially playing both ways or being some sort of dual threat weapon. I'm excited to see how that works out. Next up, Tetsuo McMillan, just monster wide receiver. Obviously, if you watched Arizona at all last year and over the previous years, he is a beast. Weird that they had Noah Fafita and Tetsuo McMillan and couldn't do more with that squad, but it looks like he actually has gone up. I don't believe he was number 3 for PFF last time I checked. Jack Beck, we are hearing a lot of buzz for Jack Beck out of the Senior Bowl. Just to give you guys little bit of news from the Senior Bowl is that he is out there just dominating guys. Let me pull up some info on him here. Jack Beck. Boom. Where is he? Yeah, so he's a standout at the Senior Bowl. Obviously, his late brother Tiger was a big storyline with the passing during the what some would call a terrorist attack, Bourbon Street in New Orleans earlier this month. So love to see him showing out. And yeah, I think at the Senior Bowl they're all wearing the number 7 on the back of their helmets for uh, Tiger Beck, his little brother. So that's awesome, man. Or his brother. I don't know if it's his little brother or older brother. Darian Porter, he's the number 42 on the board, corner from Iowa State. Haven't heard a lot of buzz there. Shador is a guy that PFF is a lot lower on than other people. And with PFF, you got to love it because they make their call, right? They make their judgment calls and they roll their dice. And if they're wrong, they're wrong. If they're right, they're right. But they stick to their guns. And I really respect that because I think it is tough to do that. Like to have Shador number 43 when it does feel like even on the lower end, some places have him in the top 20, but some places have him in the top 5. So Shador, at least PFF wise, is trending down quite a bit, but I don't think he was ever that high for them. Cam Scattaboo, oh my goodness. This is about where I would have him. That's how I kind of feel about him. I mentioned it before that, Cam Scattaboo is a super talented player. And when you're watching him with the eye test, he is doing things that are special, like very, very special. And it is very impressive. So I love that they have him there. That's how I would feel, like middle of the second round is a good spot. Ideally late second, early third, but I think you're getting a player that could easily bring back early second round, late first round value in Cam Scattaboo. Savion Williams, not shocked to see this guy here. When Utah played them, I was just bewildered with this kid. Very impressive player. This guy here, though, Jaden Higgins at the Senior Bowl. I don't know if you guys have been watching the tape coming out of the Senior Bowl. This guy is showing up and showing out. Very impressive tape. Incredible releases, incredible athleticism. This guy is a playmaker. I'm excited. I'm excited to see where he goes. Wyatt Millum, hearing rough things out of the Senior Bowl on Wyatt Millum. Really struggling and might be moving inside to play the interior based on how he's looking at the Senior Bowl. So bit of a concern there. Jonah Savia Nea. Haven't heard too much on him. I feel like I've heard a little bit, but I'm not sure if he's a riser or a faller. Let me see if we got anything here. Any news? Boom. All right. So he's getting reps at guard. I'm not sure if that would mean he's rising or falling. This is from an Arizona fan page. So not going to get a ton of detail there. Devin Neals looked pretty good at the Senior Bowl. Mello Dotson, not sure if he's in the Senior Bowl, but a good corner, top 100 corner. RJ Harvey, another piece of that UCF puzzle that just didn't work out. So that's kind of the top 100 guys. Let me see. Jalen Knoll, I've heard really good things there. Haven't heard a ton on Tyler Batty from the Senior Bowl. Junior Tafuna, I've heard he's been killing it. Taj Brooks, been pretty silent. Not even sure if he's in the Senior Bowl, but that could just be my ignorance. Karine Reed is another guy that I've heard really good things about in the Senior Bowl. So excited to see how that goes. Anyone else mentioning here? I've seen clips of Ollie Gordon, but not really heard too much. So if you guys have any more info on any of the prospects and how they're doing in the Senior Bowl, drop it below. Just because I'm not hearing a ton doesn't mean that you're not hearing a ton. Like I mentioned, I'm a Utah guy, so I'm a Big 12 guy, but I'm a Utah guy. That's the fan pages I'm following mostly. So I'm going to see the buzz around the Utah guys. So if you're a Colorado, UCF, Oklahoma State, whatever fan, especially Kansas had a few guys in there, let me know how your guys are doing. I'd love to hear what we're thinking from the source. So yeah, that's the Big 12 risers and fallers with all the all-star games going on. All right, guys. Now we are going to get into the fun stuff. We are going to kind of do a fire run of a bunch of different recruits. Like I mentioned, we're going to watch London Smith from Baylor. We're going to watch Jack Utes from Kansas, Corbin Glasgow, Kansas, Landon Anderson, Kansas, Amontre Harris, TCU, Patrick Gerd, Cincinnati, Camp Lott, UCF. It's going to be a fire run here. It should be a lot of fun, though, guys. Let's go ahead and take a look at the most recent Big 12 transfers and recruits. And we're going to start now. All right, guys. And now we are watching London Smith. London Smith is a wide receiver out of University High School in Waco, Texas. He is a 4-star prospect, according to 24/7 Sports, a 90 graded prospect, and a 4-star 0.92 graded prospect according to composite. So even better composite than he is already, as impressive as he is for 24/7. He had offers. He's committing to Baylor, but he had offers from Alabama, Arizona State, Arkansas, Auburn, just to name a few. Lots of great offers here. He was Texas District 11 5A2 Offensive Newcomer of the Year, and this was in 2022, his freshman year, named Super Centex Newcomer of the Year by Waco Tribune in both football and basketball as a freshman. His father, Rodney Smith, is a former 3-year starter at safety for Baylor between 1996 and 1999. He was 8th all-time in solo tackles for the Baylor Bears, started at guard for the 96 Baylor basketball team. His mother is also an extremely high-level athlete, 1999 NCAA national champion in the triple jump with a 45-10 meter mark, represented the U.S. at the 1999 World Championships. London Smith in his high school career, he's played 3 seasons, so he's going to be in the class of 2026, which means he won't be in this next year, but he'll be in the following. And in 3 seasons, he has amassed in a total of 31 games played. He's caught 132 passes for 2,102 yards, averaging almost 16 yards a catch, nearly 70 yards per game, and 22 touchdowns in his career. His past year, his junior season, in 8 games played, he got 45 catches, 626 yards, almost 14 yards a catch, and nearly 80 yards per game and 5 touchdowns. That is London Smith, an extremely impressive pickup for Baylor and a great addition to the 2026 recruiting class. Here we go, guys. Jack Utes, you can see it on the screen there, 6'5", 230 pounds. He's going to be in the class of 2026, so he still has a lot of time to pack on weight. He is a commit to the Kansas Jayhawks, an exciting pickup to Kansas's already very impressive class. They have been loading up lately, and a guy like this is a critical piece to a team like that. And you look at him here, guys, he's a 3-star prospect, 86th grade according to 24/7 Sports, the number 11 player in Missouri, and was a part of the Platte County State Championship team this past year, 14-0. He has offers from schools like Kansas, Arkansas, Baylor, BYU, Colorado, Indiana, Iowa State, Kansas State. Just stacks of offers here, guys. Nebraska, Northwestern, Ole Miss. This guy could have played football at most schools, right? At most schools that he wanted to. And he's a ferocious run blocker, a guy that anyone would want to have on their team. But I think Kansas got a good one here in Jack Utes out of Platte County. Okay, guys, next up on the list is Corbin Glasgow. Now, this is a guy at a Guyer High School. He's a 3-star, 87 rated prospect, 5'9", 187 pounds. Really, or 178 pounds. Sorry to misspeak there. He's the class of 2026, Denton, Texas, offers from Kansas, Kansas State, Toledo, Arkansas State. A little under recruited when you consider just how fast this kid is. He's running a 4.340, a 10.300 meter, and just brings it. 3-star junior Olympian, All-American, exciting prospect, guys. He's been on his varsity team for the past 2 seasons. He's class of 2026, which means he still has a senior year. In 2024, he had 6 games played, 14 receptions, 134 yards, and then that was receiving and rushing the ball. He had 7 carries, 1 touchdown, 116 yards. And in 2023, as a sophomore, he had 10 games played, 38 receptions, 395 yards, 4 touchdowns, 10 carries, 87 yards, 1 touchdown. So basically 12 yards a carry when running the ball, and 52 catches for 529 yards when receiving. deadly player, tons of speed, 4.3 40, 10 300 meter. Doesn't get much better than this. If he can put together quite a year next year and really make those stats stick and get a longer season out of him, some big schools are going to come knocking, and Kansas is going to have to fight to keep the grips on this kid. All right, guys, we are looking at Landon Anderson now, just committed to Kansas. Very exciting prospect. Rivals has him as a 4-star prospect, 6'4", 275 pounds, according to 24/7. 24/7 currently doesn't have him ranked at all. Very odd to see Rivals have a guy as a 4-star and 24/7 not even have him ranked. 24/7, get it together. I give you guys a ton of or a ton of props, but that's slacking a little, especially this kid committed a little bit ago, and I'm making a recruiting video for him before you guys have him graded. But is what it is. Anyways, Landon Anderson, very impressive player. Like I said, 6'4", 275 pounds. A guy that causes havoc in backfields, was getting TFLs as a sophomore in high school and followed it up with a very impressive junior year where he created a lot of havoc in the backfields. Excited to see what this kid can do as a senior. If he can follow it up, Kansas is going to have to fight to keep this kid, but also Kansas will have a ready-to-go defensive end coming in 2026. All right, guys. And now we are looking at a Montre Harris committed to TCU a couple days ago. Exciting prospect, 6'3", 213 pounds, edge rusher for TCU coming in here in the class of 2026. 213 pounds is a little light for an edge rusher, but just to give you guys an idea about what this kid is bringing and why he'll be able to do it at the next level, once he packs on some size. This guy played in 15 games last year as a junior. Looking at it, it looks like it was his first year on varsity, and he had 18 TFLs, 18 tackles for a loss. That is a crazy number. And he followed that up with 10 sacks on top of 18 TFLs and 9 hurries on the quarterback. So this guy is living in the backfield, and you can see on the film he is dominating offensive tackles. He does not play like he is 213 pounds. He plays like he's 250, and he'll have some time here. Hopefully he can get up into that 6'3", 230, 235-ish range by the time he gets to college to get out there and get some reps on the field. Very, very impressive player. He had offers from the likes of TCU, Houston, SMU, Tulsa, and I'm sure more offers will be coming in once this tape gets out more. Very impressive kid. Very, very quick, agile on the field. And if you're an edge rusher that can disrupt plays in the backfield, you can make a living at the next level. That's a Montre Harris for TCU out of Summer Creek. All right, guys, and we are looking at Camp Lott here. He is an offensive tackle prospect that committed to UCF to the Knights. Exciting prospect, a kid out of Park Lane Academy. Yeah, Park Lane Academy out of Macomb, Mississippi. He is a big kid here. You can take a look at him. He's 6'6", 245 pounds. So he definitely has some size that he's going to need to tack on. And a lot of the highlights in high school are him playing defense. But it looks like he is going to be playing offensive tackle at the next level. So hard to take too much from these highlights, but he's got the size for it. He's athletic. You love to see that in an offensive tackle, and definitely has the ability to chase guys down and make plays in the backfield. So that's Camp Lott for the UCF Knights. Guys, and finally, we are going to be looking at Patrick Gerd, who just transferred to Cincinnati. You can see on the screen here, he was a 3-star rated 84 level transfer. Definitely a guy that Cincinnati's getting, someone that has the pedigree. He's been playing at Ohio State for a while now. He's been there since 2021, slowly increased in snap numbers, but again, didn't get a ton of playing time, but you do love the fact that he was able to be in a room with a ton of good players and still be able to get some reps and learn in a really good system that has turned out a lot of good tight ends over the years. Jeremy Ruckert is the first name that pops to mind. I believe he was in the same room as Jeremy Ruckert, and definitely a guy that's been around good players, can help bring a winning program mentality from a national champion. Probably going to be a starter based on just looking at Cincinnati's roster. But either way, looks like a good pickup, and we'll have to see just how impactful he can be once he actually gets out there on the field. All right, guys. So if you made it this far, I appreciate you guys watching the whole video. Takes a long time to make a video this long, so if you could drop the like button, that'd mean a lot to me. Also, obviously, if you're new to the channel, or if you've been to the channel a while now, you know this is a newer format for us. Still trying to find that balance of being able to get you guys a ton of content, but also having some balance to life. You know, if I'm just making videos all the time every day, it's a little overwhelming. Doing it in one big video like this gives me the ability to do the one big video and then break it out into smaller videos. That's why we kind of broke it down into segments, and I think that'll be really digestible as we get into the season. So if you like that, or if you have an opinion on it, you know, drop it in the comments. I'd like to know what you guys are thinking. Just to recap what we talked about today, guys. Utah has a real shot to be the bigger winner of the Big 12. ESPN is predicting that Utah will win the Big 12 and be the number 3 seed in the CFP. Would be a super exciting deal for Utah. And considering how many one-score games Utah was razor close in, it really seems like it could be a real thing. And Utah really, you get this Jason Beck offense in there, the number 2 offense in the country last year when playing against FBS teams. The odds that you're not going to get at least a reasonably better offense is, you know, very low. So I'm excited for Utah this year. It seems like a real shot. We also went over the Big 12 wildness. You know, the Big 12, when you look at the preseason rankings and the end of season rankings in 2024, it was literally like flipped top to bottom nearly. I mean, you think about it, Oklahoma State and Utah, bottom 4 teams. Kansas State, you know, I think they were number 8 off the top of my head. A lot of discrepancy there. And so as we head into this next year, you know, there's so many one-score games in the Big 12 that a lot of teams that were at the top this year will be at the bottom next year, and vice versa. So keep an eye on that, see how that goes. We also talked about conference realignment, a lot going on with the Pac-12. We talked about the ACC picking up the TV option, how that could affect the future of college football. We talked about Big 12 draft risers and fallers, gave some opinions on a lot of those guys. And we broke down a ton of recruiting prospects, a bunch of Big 12 guys, a bunch of exciting prospects, guys. Like I said, I'm going to get out of here. Like the video, comment down below, subscribe to the channel too if you haven't already. I'm going to break the video down into smaller segments and post those throughout the week so you guys can watch those as well. So if you watch the big video and you just want to, you know, get another view of things we talked about, feel free to watch that as well. I'm out of here. Go Big 12.